What's going on, guys? This is Rob, and we are back with Avengers versus X-Men versus Eternals, and we are picking up with the God Celestial having made its judgment against the Earth and basically decided that everybody's got to go. And again, this is really cool because it's a very cynical take on humanity. I wouldn't go as far as to say that the real world is a reflection of how it's being judged here in the comics. I would say that it oftentimes seems like that, but unless you've traveled the world and seen what's out there, there's no real way you could actually make a judgment against the nature of humanity itself. But the thing about this is that in this comic and in this story, the God Celestial in the last video that we did had examined the real heart of hearts when it came to individual people. It looked at a combination of how they see themselves, how they see the world, their actions, what they truly believe, all those different things. And it judged against humanity because it made the decision that humanity just simply made the world a crappy place, because humanity in and of itself is really self-destructive, selfish, different things like that. And what the God Celestial does is looking at humanity as it exists in the Marvel Universe, that it looks at humanity as being a group whereby there is more negativity than there is positivity. Humanity is inherently worse than it is beneficial. Now, the funny thing about this is that to a degree, the God Celestial is not really judging objectively. And this comes by way of a girl named Jada who meets with Captain America. That Steve Rogers was one of the first people to be judged by the God Celestial, and in looking at Steve Rogers, basically came up with this idea, or came up with this argument, that you have positioned yourself, you weren't thrust into this role, you positioned yourself as being kind of the moral focal point of the superhero community, right? You're Captain America. Everybody rallies around you. You have failed in your role. It's almost to a degree a kind of metatextual critique of America here in the real world, right? Like a beacon of hope and light in the world, and a task that we've kind of failed at. And that's the argument that it creates here with Captain America. But the reality here is it is a skewed judgment, because there comes a point when Captain America is talking to Jada, who's just a regular person out there. And it's one of those things where we end up finding out that she had lost her daughter when she was younger, and literally is just angry at the world because of it. And in fact, she's angry at the people she knows because they survived where her daughter died. Now, that's usually a normal reaction when it comes to losing someone close to you, right? Losing a parent, especially if you're a parent who's lost a child. You're surrounded by people who survived, and the question you probably find yourself asking is, why are they alive? Why did my child have to die? Why couldn't one of them have died instead, or something along those lines? As if it's some kind of divine judgment that says that somebody's got to die today, and it might as well be your daughter, right? Well, why couldn't it be that person over there? It's not logical, it's 100% emotional, but it's the nature of people. And it's one of the things where when she has this conversation with Captain America, he's kind of like, but you should be spending time with your family, right? We're here in the final moments of humanity's existence. You should be spending that time with your family. It's him trying to inspire her. And that's where you really start to realize that the judgment of the Celestial is a skewed judgment here. Because when you look at Captain America for what he truly is, he is inspiring. He is a person that's able to motivate and drive people to become better. What you end up running into is basically people who aren't really able to look at that inspiration and see it for what it is, and find themselves blinded by their own political views or their own life experiences or their own moral compass or whatever it happens to be, that basically keeps them thinking small and acting small and viewing the world in relation to themselves. Now, of course, in the midst of this conversation, Nightcrawler simply appears and says, hey, so we're basically going to try to find a way to save the world, even though the world hates us and the world judges us as mutants. But do you want to become a part of it? And so what ends up happening is Captain America kind of has this realization where he basically tells Nightcrawler, teleport me to the Celestial. And when that happens, have Jean Grey use her telepathic powers to broadcast the entire situation to the world. And what Captain America says in speaking to this Celestial is he says, I've stood before tyrants before. They've all been so sure that it's all over. They were all as sure as you are. I was there in 1940 and people thought it was over. Heroism is not about strength. It's about not giving in. And the truth is, it's not over as long as any of us are standing. The world can hear me, know this. We are all Avengers now. Assemble and avenge. Now, of course, Captain America is annihilated in front of everybody by the Celestial, but the world sees this broadcast, and that's the unifying factor of Captain America. The question then becomes, how successful would we be if we launched a strike against the God Celestial itself? Now, the Eternals chime in, and the Eternals are like, lest we forget the nature of our programming, if we attack a Celestial, we'll be overtaken by it, right? Our programming will take over, and we'll in turn start attacking you guys. It's exactly what happened before. But they also found a workaround. What they ended up doing was basically kind of lowering their psychic firewalls, right? If their programming is ingrained into their DNA, because in Marvel Comics, Eternals are not robots, but if their mind is more or less programmed with this idea that no Celestial can be harmed in the presence of an Eternal, then what would happen if a powerful enough telepath were capable of overriding that? That if they lowered their mental protection, right, their mental blocks, and someone like Jean Grey were to seize control of them and that programming were to kick in, is Jean Grey powerful enough to override it? And the answer to that question is absolutely she is. And not just Jean Grey, the other telepaths. And so what ends up happening here is that all forms of disagreement are cast aside by the Eternals who are here, as well as the X-Men and the remaining Avengers. And what this does is it allows the group to unify. Now for the telepaths, they seize control of the Eternals. And what that does is it allows them to control the Eternals essentially, but to also keep out the programming, so it will allow the Eternals to attack the Celestials. And when I say the Eternals, I mean all of them, even the Hex, right? Just these ridiculously huge and powerful Eternals. It allows them to control them all. And so what you end up getting is this unified force of the Avengers and the X-Men and the Eternals, all of whom launch their attack against the Celestial. And it's the funniest thing, because literally this Celestial says they are Earth's best hope. Mortal power against a star god. The buzz of ballistics cannot hurt me. However, it does distract. It allows the Hex to get close. Each one of the Stepford Cuckoos, who are basically clones of Emma Frost, each one of the Stepford Cuckoos drives one of the Soldier Hex. Mother Emma takes Mother Regenax. They are machines designed to fight cosmic predators such as myself. Their attack compromises my counterattack, leaving me open for reposit. I am a god. Appropriately, they unleash hell. Yet all of this is prologue. The hammer is still to come. Earth's mightiest strike is won. Their target is exposed. They are a metaphorical hammer. The final blow is from one more literal, right? The hammer of Thor himself. I am impressed. I see so many brought together, but I have already finished my judgment. What god would I be if I backed out now? Yes, Thor is worthy, but the world is not. I make every part of Thor unworthy. His skin sloughs from his body in revulsion. Starbrand burns. Phoenix burns, Jean Grey burns, Exodus burns, Phosphorus fast. They are all gone. It's basically like a total annihilation here. This is something that I want to point out, is that these heroes getting close enough to this god Celestial and being close enough to attack it, it was him allowing it to happen. If anything, it was actually him just kind of toying with them, allowing them to believe they could come that close to victory, allowing them to believe that they ever even stood a chance in the first place. But the reality is none of them ever did. He kills all of them. All of them are completely annihilated by the Celestial. Like, we're talking about Carol Danvers, we're talking about Spider-Man, right? Thor, the whole 9 yards. The heaviest hitters in Marvel Comics from a variety of different places are all being completely and totally annihilated, and there's nothing they can do to stop this. And so it literally says, I will burn the cities and I will burn the seas. I will burn the earth and all creatures of the earth. The passengers of this ship represent more wealth than the rest of the planet combined. The experimental engines prepare to engage, sights set on a new blue-green Eden. They think they can escape my judgment. No. One of the things that I also want to point out here is this is how Celestials work. So the way this normally happens, right? Usually it's Arishem the judge that will judge against the world. When Arishem judges against the world, then another Celestial will cleanse the planet. Quite literally, they'll turn it into a burning cinder, just floating through space. But then the Gardener Celestial will come in and actually start planting new seeds of life on the world, and it'll basically start to grow again, right? Life will be able to start all over again. And that's really what the God Celestial is doing here, right? It's making this determination that what it's going to do is annihilate all life on Earth and then start allowing Earth to basically start developing new life. And hopefully humanity won't screw up again when humanity inevitably reemerges, if it even emerges in its current form. And so that's one of those things where it's like, we don't know exactly how this will turn out, but everything is being cleansed and sanitized. It's all being completely and totally destroyed. The crazy thing about it is even the God Celestial tells the Earth it's time to die, and the Earth itself lashes back at the God Celestial and simply just refuses to allow itself to be destroyed. But the truth about this is that when it comes to all these heroes who have been annihilated, precious few survive. Something like 5 of them made it out in one piece. Most everybody else was completely eradicated. But remember, the other problem here is that when the war between the X-Men and the Eternals first broke out, the Jack of Blades had infiltrated Krakow, and in doing that had destroyed their ability, or at least most of their ability, to resurrect anybody from the dead using the Krakowan resurrection system. And so because of that, what you have now is just a handful of eggs that can be used by the 5 to bring back anybody who's died. And so the effort to do this is really confined to who do we bring back? Now the response of somebody like Exodus is we have to bring back Cyclops. Cyclops is the field leader of the X-Men. He's the guy that was literally the one that would take us into battle, take us into conflict, right? He's our version of Captain America. But the response of Nightcrawler and even the response of everybody else is, no, that's not who the world needs right now. The world does not need like Cyclops. The world does not need him, right? The other part of this is that when they had initially launched their strike against the Celestial, they had consulted Destiny, right? Because remember, Destiny can see the future, and the closer to the present day or the present moment that she's predicting, the more accurate she is, right? So if she predicts or says, here's what's going to happen in 5 minutes, it's going to be way more accurate than if she says, here's what's supposed to happen in 500 years. But when they consulted her and they talked to her, her stance was, yes, your attack on the Celestial can work, but only with a few modifications. And so what they did is they held some of their number back with the intention of launching yet another strike force to infiltrate the Celestial. Now, where their initial strike force was done for the purpose of exposing some kind of weakness that would allow the superheroes to destroy the Celestial, that doesn't work. They already know that fails, so they have to have some other plan in place. We don't know the exact details of it, but basically it's Jack of Blades who leads the strike team into the Celestial itself. The problem with this is that when they arrive, the Celestial, as you would expect, immediately picks up on the fact that they're there, even though they have a cloaking system, and it makes perfect sense, right? I mean, it's very difficult to fool a Celestial using something like telepathy or just a basic cloaking device because Celestials are just so astronomically powerful. But in order to fool the Celestial into believing that Jack of Blades is the only one who's actually there, that what Jack of Blades does is appear to the Celestial and literally just make some kind of offhanded remark, right? Like, I'll be seeing you, and draws the attention of the Celestial, which annihilates Jack. But it seems to lead the Celestial to believe that Jack was the only one who was there. That's actually not the case. But the thing about this is that when you pick back up with essentially this resurrection process, the members of the 5 who were able to bring people back, there's this debate going on between Exodus and Nightcrawler that's still raging, right? The stance of Exodus, we have to bring back Cyclops. We can't bring back anybody else. But again, what ends up happening is Nightcrawler says, no, this is the guy we have to bring back. And the response of Exodus is, this is heresy, right? We cannot use, it's against the rules of Krakow to use these eggs to bring him back. It goes against everything that we have. And the stance of Nightcrawler is, no, it simply just goes against our customs, right? The only rule that we have when it comes to humanity is kill no man, right? Do not start a war between human beings and like the mutant population. But the other reason why this is so important is because he says, what are customs if not just habits that we have that a lot of people take part in, right? Getting together on Sunday for dinner is a habit, but it becomes a custom because it's something that like the entire family does. But the reality is, as long as we live, we have to try something new. That's what we do. Cyclops is a great leader, but he's not who the Earth needs right now. And so using the power of resurrection, what they end up doing is bringing this person back. And when that happens, in one of the greatest moments in Marvel Comics, Captain America's shield comes smashing through the mutant resurrection system. Now, the question you have to ask here is this Steve Rogers as we knew him? Is this Steve Rogers with potential enhancements? Is Steve Rogers a guy with powers now? What kind of Captain America are we looking at here? Because lest we forget, that whenever mutants are resurrected, they're always resurrected based on how they existed before, right? Meaning like their minds were backed up. And while Captain America is not a mutant, remember, you have Proteus here, who's the one resurrecting people, meaning Proteus can modify the DNA structure of anybody he resurrects. If there was a request that was made, we need to give Captain America more powers. We need to give him a combination of all the X-Men's powers or all the Avengers powers, or make him equal to the Celestial in terms of power. Presumably, Proteus could potentially do that. That's the question you have to ask here. Is this just human Captain America, or is it something more? But with that being said, guys, we're gonna bring this to an end. Thank you all for watching, and I will catch you all later. Peace.